I used to live in a house in southern West Virginia. It was a beautiful house with a small garden in the front. It was directly beside a two-lane road. At night, especially in the spring when it rains, it gets extremely foggy. Well, it had just rained and I was lying in my bed around 10 p.m. I glanced out the window and I saw some weird movement in the bushes in front of my lawn. I was doing my English homework, so I just thought it was a stray dog or bear or something. As night drew to a close, so did my eyelids. I put my homework up, promising myself I'd do the rest in the morning. I looked out the window into the fog that was very thick and saw little handprints on the window and a writing like someone had just written it with their finger. I was on the second floor, so I guess you know this part. I told my parents, but they didn't believe me. They sent me to bed. When I returned, I didn't see the writing or the handprints on the window anymore, so I just tried to get some sleep because I had school in the morning. In the middle of the night, I woke up at exactly 3 a.m. and heard a strange noise that sounded like it was from a video game or something. A weird grunting noise. I began to get dizzy, and for some reason had a weird, I guess you could call it vision. I saw a man and a woman. A child walked into the room, and then, I guess the people who were the parents looked at him and said, "Monroe, we've got to tell you something." And I woke up. I have no idea what she was going to say, but I think the window had something to say. It read, "For those in sin and scream and yell will burn into the pits of hell." I was so scared that I ran down my stairs and into my mom's room, and literally ran through the room. I'm not even sure I even touched the handle. It seemed like I just knocked it down with my head. I was dazed and I just stumbled into my mom's room and passed out. My mom woke me up asking why I was half sprawled out on her bed with my legs dangling over the edge. I told her the story and she had a very weird look on her face, with a cup of coffee for herself and a Coca-Cola for me. She asked if I knew why she got such a beautiful house for such a low price. She told me that a child's murder had taken place in my room, next to the window by the kid's parents. She gave me a newspaper article that read October 23rd, 2010. It was exactly the same people that were in my dream. When I was around 16, I went to Nicaragua where my mother was born. I spent a year learning Spanish since my family over there only spoke Spanish. I was excited to go to another country since I had never left the States, but what I would see would remain etched in my mind for the rest of my life. The area in which we stayed was beautiful. My aunt lived in a beautiful plantation-style house. There were quite a few sugarcane fields that dominated most of the neighborhood where she lived. It was July 22nd. I only remember the date because it was my grandma's birthday. The hot night began as any other. Everyone was eating, drinking, dancing, whatever goes on at a party. Later into the early hours of the morning, me and my two cousins, Connie and Roger, were hanging out in the yard talking, when suddenly we heard laughter coming from the front of the house. The laughter of children. Knowing that the 3 children of the house were asleep, we dismissed it. A few minutes later, we heard it again. "Isn't it a little late for the kids to be out?" I asked my cousin, who nodded in agreement. We decided we would scare them since we were bored. We got our flashlights and proceeded to the front of the house. The laughter grew closer and we saw 2 little boys running and playing down the road. We decided we would hide and jump out at them to scare them. Only it would be us who would be getting scared. They got closer and closer, their laughter growing louder. 1, 2, 3. We jumped out and turned our flashlights on and yelled, "What are you doing out so late?" The boys were not startled. They looked up at us and my blood ran cold. I couldn't breathe and I heard my pulse thumping loudly in my ear. They stood there staring at us, no more laughter. Blood was dripping down their faces. One had almost half his face torn off. Blood poured from their shredded clothing, and one was missing most of the fingers of his right hand. There was a gurgled cry and then our flashlights died and the boys disappeared. As soon as the shock wore off, we ran into the house in hysterics, asking if we had all just seen the gruesome sight, hoping it was just our imagination. No, it was real. Connie and I slept together that night. The laughter again came from the road in front of the house, followed by the gurgled scream. My heart was beating out of my chest and my stomach was in knots. Finally, sleep managed to overcome me. The next morning we were eating breakfast while my aunt and grandma were watching TV. "Oh God, how horrible," I heard my aunt say. Connie, Roger, and I got up to see what was on the TV that was so horrible. It was the news. They found 2 young boys mauled to death by wild dogs in one of the sugarcane fields. One was 10 and the other was 11 years old and they were killed 2 nights ago. They showed 2 side-by-side photos of the boys when they were alive. They were the same boys we saw the night before. This happened 5 years ago, but the memories are as vivid as that night. I used to live in a large city in the deep south of the U.S. I lived there for almost 4 years between 1995 and 1999. This happened in 1997. It was my first time living alone. No roommate, no live-in boyfriend, just me, in a 2nd-story apartment just steps away from the Mardi Gras parade route. 600 square feet of hardwood floors, huge windows, and the coolest curved front balcony. I did have a boyfriend, but he had his own apartment down the hall. We started dating about a year after I moved in, but he was a rookie cop and student, so he wasn't around much. We respected each other's privacy and didn't have keys to each other's apartments. The main entertainment district in my town, where I worked as a bartender, was only 5 blocks from my place, so I regularly walked to and from work as well as my favorite hangouts. One night after my evening shift and a couple cocktails at my favorite bar, I came home, made Nate some dinner, and went to bed. It was Mardi Gras time, and I'm a bartender. I was exhausted. I was almost asleep when I felt my boyfriend Todd sit behind me, hug me, and kiss me on the cheek. His nose was icy cold, so I screamed and went to pull away, but he was sitting on my hair, so I kinda had to yank my hair from under his thigh, which pretty much woke me up fully. I was not amused. Mardi Gras bartenders need their sleep. Then I went cold with terror. It couldn't be Todd. He didn't have a key. Plus he's a cop and it's Mardi Gras, which means he's at work. I leapt out of the bed and spun around. There was no one there, guys. I felt his cold nose and his breath in my ear. My hair was pinned and it hurt to pull it free. I felt the mattress pressed down as if someone sat down. Needless to say, I slept badly on the couch the rest of the night. Fast forward 2 months. It's lovely, lovely April, and it's springtime, and it's beautiful. My downstairs neighbor, Laura, comes back into town. She's a regional manager for a popular steakhouse chain, so she travels. She's actually a friend of Todd's, and super cool and social, so she invites me down because she's having some friends over. After a while, one of the friends mentions how cool her apartment is. It's a ground level mirror image of mine. Thanks, she says, but I've been thinking of moving because the ghost is so damn annoying. Of course, at this point, I'm all ears. Whenever I shower, I come out and all the kitchen drawers are pulled out as far as they will go. And the footrest of my recliner is pulled out. I've almost broken my leg tripping on it a few times, and my toe once from kicking it in rage. She says this so matter-of-factly. At this point, Jeremy from down the hall gets up abruptly and leaves. 5 minutes later, he passes Laura's open front door with a duffel bag, gets in his car and drives off. Okay, I've got to hear more. And Laura has lived here for at least 8 years, so I press her for details. So apparently about 6 years previously, the guy across the hall from Laura's apartment, directly under me, shot himself in the head. No one knew why. There have been disturbances ever since. Anyway, I lived in that place another 2 years, and it never got any more intense than that. And Jeremy did end up coming back, but moved out a couple of months later. I ran into him years later in 2004, and I asked him why he moved. He said that whenever he woke up, came home, or got out of the shower, his pistol would be lying on the coffee table.